everyone, and welcome to my first ever tutorial. If you haven't already, please click that like button and hit subscribe to follow for more content. Today I'm going to be showing you all a new technique I learned recently thanks to Coopercustomcasts. Please head over to his channel and check out some of the awesome things that he's been creating recently. So I actually prepared my resin off screen. I'll show you guys how I prepare my resin in another tutorial soon. And I selected my inks, which I'll show you in a minute, and I'll have a link in my description which tells you where I buy my inks from. I pour my resin into the mould, and I actually overfilled this mould a little bit, so I'm just removing some of it here, because when you add inks it adds to the final level and you don't want it to spill over. I'm just now using this tool here to help dislodge any of the bubbles that might be stuck to the sides and to the surface of the mould, because you don't want any bubbles left anywhere, so they will create holes when you unpeel your mould. Just going around making sure I've got every last little bubble. Some of them do get quite stuck. Take your time, make sure you've got all of them. Okay, as I then use my blowtorch to remove any bubbles that are left. Short bursts of heat so you don't burn your mould whilst you're doing this. Okay, so the inks that I'm going to use today are by Resin, and these guys are perfect for making wisps and resins. They don't really sink. They are really vibrant, strong colours, even when you add the white into them, and they just look fabulous. So let's get started. So I'm just dropping in some of the colours now. I mean, you can use whatever colours in whatever order you want. I have a tendency to like to mirror from one side to another. I like symmetry, so it works well for me. And do a few drops of colour. You don't want too much, especially when the moulds are quite thin. You end up with too much colour saturation. So there we have the sea blue. And you can see sort of the way that they mix and swirl together. They do have a tendency to push each other back, so if you work reasonably quickly, they don't push too far apart. Just adding in the dark purple there. I did start off by doing the lines and then added in the final colour, which is the rose. Sort of nice vibrant pink there, and decided that actually I wanted to create a circle around that pink instead of having the lines, so I added a little bit more of the purple back into that. Obviously then I added a little bit more of the other colours back into that to just make sure that everything mixed the way I wanted it to. And then normally once the colours have mixed in a little bit, I start to get some gaps where the resin hasn't quite mixed with the ink, so I'll add a few more drops of the different colours where I need them to be, just to make sure I've got even coverage. Okay, so now we've finished the colours, we're going to add the white. The white you need to give a really good shake. I mean, you need to give all the colours a shake, but the white especially, because the pigment tends to settle into the bottom. So you need to give it a really good shake to make sure that all that pigment is mixed up properly before you drop it into the resin. And then once you have shaken it up, you want to gently add drops of the white in. Now this dropper on my bottle here is quite free-flowing, but you need to be careful with white, because if you add too much white it will oversaturate the colours, and you won't get the beautiful bleed through and the vibrancy of the colours. You'll just end up with this sort of pastel, wishy-washy mess, which isn't great. It's great if that's what you're aiming for, but if you want the vibrant, strong colours, then you need to make sure that you're very sparing with the white so that it doesn't take over too much. I'm just going to zoom in here, and you can see sort of the alcohol inks, the alcohol boiling off, which is then leaving the colour pigment mixing in with the resin and going down through. So now we've moved on to about 2.5 hours later, and I'm just checking the consistency of the resin here to make sure that it's right before I start doing the wisp. It has to be the right consistency, otherwise this technique does not work. As you can see here, I'm now taking the tool and I am slowly dragging it through the thickened resin and creating the patterns. And then removing the tool and wiping it off each time so that I'm not adding resin from a different area. And then going back and repeating the swirl again in another area. Again, do the same again on the other side. I like symmetry, so I tend to follow suit on the same on each side. As you can see a little bit more clearly on this side how that resin behaves and how it's dragging the colours through rather than just allowing the tool to slice through it and everything stay where it's supposed to be. It's a great way to be able to create some lovely effects. I've created sort of fire effects, swirls, feather effects, quite a few different pattern varieties. The one thing I will say is be careful not to over mix. You need to try and keep your lines relatively separate and keep them clean and simple. Once you start crossing over, the colours all start to muddy together despite the fact that the resin is thicker, and you just end up with a mess. I've made those mistakes so you don't have to. As you can see, I decided that I wasn't quite decisive enough what I was doing there, so I went for a second turn just to make sure that it was properly mixed. Take you guys in so you can see a little bit better there. And then we will come back tomorrow and see the results. Ta-da! It's tomorrow. So this is what it looks like once it has dried. Sorry about the shininess, it's daytime now and I have a plastic roof above me. There's a little light in. Trying to show you guys without too much shininess in the way. Focus, camera. You can see these beautiful swirls, and the back does end up looking amazing when you create these pieces. So let's start to demold him. So I can get the camera to focus. Come on, focus. There we go. Trials and tribulations. Careful to unpeel. My particular resin takes 72 hours to fully harden, so I'm unpeeling this rather gingerly because it is still very soft, but I was too excited to wait any longer before showing you guys what it looks like. So here we go with it coming off now. Finally got to that reveal moment. Just making sure that I don't have anything stuck. And there she is. Doesn't she look pretty? Actually reminds me a little bit of Van Gogh's Starry Night. With all those swirls. Try and get you in a little bit closer without blinding you all with the shininess. Hang on a minute. There we go, I found an angle, so I'll zoom in and you can see all those swirls. And you can see, because I haven't used too much white, it's mixed and blended with those colours beautifully to give that gorgeous swirled effect without oversaturating with the white. So now I'll just show you guys what it looks like from the sides. As you can see, as I said to you, it doesn't actually sink really at all. It does a little bit, but nowhere near as much as some of the other inks that I use, which is why it's so much better for this type of effect, because it doesn't really sink. You do get these little bits here that sink, but for the most part it likes to sit relatively near the surface, and that suits me down to the ground when it comes to this. As you can see on the back, those vibrant colours and swirls creates those gorgeous colours. Don't know what happened to my camera here at this point. It went lovely and grainy and I had to restart. I went back to normal again. But yeah. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial today and have learned a little something from it. Please leave me any comments of how I can improve or anything else that you would like to see in the next video. I do have a few things in the pipeline ready to go, but any feedback is appreciated at this point. Thanks very much for joining me, guys. See you soon.